Well, I haven't had that kind of reception since I was playing football at Iowa, Doug. But welcome to Liberty and Justice on CPAC now. You can also catch us on Whitaker.tv. I am joined, and the first guest of today is former member of Congress, Doug Collins. Doug, how are you?
Well, doing great.
Isn't this pretty awesome?
It's a good time. Good time to be here.
Well, I am so glad that you could join us. You know, we have so much to talk about, but I think the first thing I want to talk to you about is how we first met. So why don't you tell the story of how we first met, and then the second time we met.
The first time we met, it was pretty interesting because I recorded this down for posterity, so people want to go read about it. I got to meet you when we were getting ready because Jerry Nadler had this obsession with you. He said, I've got to have Matt Whitaker. He's going to be my first witness of the 2019 Congress. And so we went to meet with you just to talk about it and met you in the old Robert Kennedy
conference room, right.
And you were sitting there and we were talking about the upcoming year, what was coming up. You were taking over the hearing, in which was nothing but trying to get at you. And so we had a great conversation, but it was funny. One of the funny things, if you've never seen Matt, I figured Matt's a large guy. Matt, Iowa fed and grown is a good one.
It's just the chairs are small. That's the problem.
Well, that was the chair problem in that room that day. He's leaning back in his chair, and I'm saying, oh, my goodness, this is a famous room. And that chair is going to break, and I couldn't pick him up if I tried.
Yeah.
But we had a great conversation because I found out one thing, Matt. Out of everything the media was trying to portray about you at that time, you came with a deep love and want to make the Department of Justice better. And that was what was not being portrayed, and that was our first time to meet.
Yeah, and I remember that was impactful because really history will record, Doug, and your book records, and it's remind me the title. It's the Clock and the Calendar.
Yep,
it's a great book. I have my copy. I should have brought it for you to sign, but the Clock and the Calendar. Make sure you grab your copy. We'll have show note links at Whitaker.tv and conservative.org. But you really came, and the way it was told to me by staff, and you got to watch out for staff, as you know. It's not the same as principals talking, but the staff came to me and said, the ranking member on Judiciary Committee is not certain that you should do this. Like, make them subpoena you or just, run out the clock. Right. Because, quite frankly, Bill Barr was going to be confirmed within a week or two of that hearing date. And and not that we didn't know each other, and you didn't know sort of that I was unafraid, and I wasn't going to let the bastards get me. But
that was it.
You'd come with a message, I think, initially, like, don't do this. You don't need to do this. Let somebody that's better looking and more effective. But I think through our conversation, we had a legitimate conversation.
We did.
What we talked about was why I wanted to do it, why I thought it was important, why that platform, and if it's a truly an oversight hearing, why we could talk about the work that the Department of Justice was doing. And your point is like, listen, Matt, the Democrats are out for blood. They want to take you down. And you know what? You don't have a lot of friends in the Republicans either, because Jim Jordan is not happy with the Republicans. John Ratcliffe not happy with this administration's response to a lot of these issues surrounding the Mueller hoax. And so I think by the end of our meeting, I convinced you I'm going to go do it.
Yep.
The American people deserve to hear my answers. And so I walk into the hearing room that day, and you're there, and remind me your opening remarks was, I have contributed to the fund, but tell our friends here about your fund that you raised.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing for popcorn. For anybody who likes popcorn, that was the day, because this was the hearing. And one of the reasons, and I'm glad that he actually said that, was in the sense of saying, Matt, that I understood the Hill, and part of my job, especially coming to you, is to say, look, I'm the ranking member, and I felt a responsibility to my members, but also to you coming in to say, look, I need to tell you what you're coming into. Yeah. We'll protect you as best we can, but we knew the Democrats were just out there for it. So I decided to start the hearing off because I had griped and moaned about this. So I started off and I said, everybody, at the end of the day, there's going to be a show hearing. This is what it was going to be. Get the popcorn ready. And we'll go. Well, after that, a reporter asked me about the popcorn machine. And I said, we'll do it. So we ended up getting a popcorn machine, committed to it, and it's still in the
and I donated to the fund.
You did? Got it up there.
And there is a popcorn machine in the ranking member's office.
Yep.
And it serves really good popcorn.
It is good popcorn.
Yeah.
Because with the Nadler show, you need popcorn.
Yeah. And so that was how we first met. And we were kind of a trial by fire. And like you said, while you didn't say it in your opening remarks, you were like, this is a show trial.
Yes.
This has nothing to do with actually an oversight hearing in the Department of Justice. This has nothing to do with the resources that we need to fight the opioid crisis, violent crime in America. These Democrats are not serious. All they care about is, that you might fire Bob Mueller.
Exactly. And this was the sad part about this, because I had just, and you got to remember this, it was almost like a Jekyll and Hyde. I mean, from Nadler, Hakeem Jeffries, all these folks, we had just gotten to where we had actually done a lot of good work on criminal justice reform. You and I are still working in that. And they didn't want to talk a bit about it. And those were some things that had moved the ball along. You were willing to do that. They wouldn't listen to it because all they were obsessed with was Mueller, because they believed it was going to get Donald Trump. And they found out it didn't.
Yeah. And so we are a few minutes from taking a break, and you're going to stay with us through the break. But one of the questions that I have to ask is, you decided, even though you enjoyed being the ranking member on the House Judiciary Committee, and as somebody once described it, they said, it's the closest you'll be to the bar scene in Star Wars in your life. And I wouldn't disagree.
Exactly.
But it was, it was a lot of strong personalities, a lot of lawyers, and, kind of whether you believe that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's just the way it is. But you decided to give that up and to go run for the Senate in your home state of Georgia.
I did.
And, God has a plan for our lives, and it's not always the doors we think we're walking through, but he has opened up a tremendous opportunity for you. Talk a little bit about this, and then we'll head into break, and then when we come back, we'll expand more.
Well, it has. And we put up a great fight. We were outspent 10-1, $60 million, almost won. And we didn't get our primary. But at the end of the day, I believe, like you said, God had a plan, because I believe conservatives have got to understand we've got to have a better message. We've got to talk about the things that matter. And this gives me a platform now with the podcast, the Doug Collins Podcast. You can go to DougCollinsPodcast.com, go listen to it. It gives us an overview of conservative messaging, not just in politics, but in life, because we've got to realize that people out there who don't come to CPAC, who don't go to places, need a message. We got to do that. Yeah, well,
I'm going to put a pin in that, because this is the discussion that I've been trying to get to, which is, what is the future of the conservatives of America? What is the agenda that's going to win America? And so when we come back, more with Doug Collins here on CPAC Now and Liberty and Justice with Matt Whitaker.
It is my first CPAC, yes.
So important that everybody come to CPAC, because we need to show the diversity of our party. Yes.
And that's why folks come from everywhere to go to CPAC.
Because it's where you get inspired.
All right, welcome back to Liberty and Justice. I'm Matt Whitaker, your host on CPAC Now, also on Whitaker.tv. We're joined by former member of Congress, Doug Collins. And before we took a break, we were going to talk about the future of conservatism in the United States of America, how we win back states like your home state of Georgia, which currently has 2 Democrat senators. I didn't think we'd ever see that in our lifetime. But why don't you talk about the things that work for conservatives, and then also talk about how boring conservatives can be.
Well, I think you
Although
just
these folks behind us aren't very boring.
Hey, it's conservative in the house, all right? No, that's why you come to CPAC. It's almost like going, it's like going to church. You get out and you see everybody you agree with. But, folks, this is not reality. Okay, out in the real world, people, don't have the same opinions as we do as conservatives. What I found when I was the Republican ranking member of Judiciary, but also as the vice chair, I got to travel the country. Here's the thing that I found so much, is that Democrats are really good at talking about the results of the people. What does it matter? We as conservatives, how many times have you heard a conservative get on a podcast or talk, well, we had 2.8% growth this year. Isn't that good, Matt?
That's real exciting, Doug.
I was glad to be here at the Rotary Club.
Right now.
Because here's what you got to do. I mean, I'm sitting out there. I wanted to take a fork and stick it in my own leg. I wouldn't vote for the person. I mean, and I'm out here to want to support them. Here's what you got to do. When is it like this? And I'll go back to one, and when we did the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, which actually helped people. I heard so many of my colleagues going out saying, here's how much the stock market grew. Nobody on Main Street cared about how the stock market grew. If it did their 401k, great. What they cared about was their job. They cared about their kids. They cared about their family. I had a businessman highlight this for me. He said, Doug, I appreciate the fact there was a situation in the tax act that said you could same year depreciate large capital expenses. Pretty cool for geeks on accounting, but not for everybody else. So we talked about
You mean
that.
accelerated depreciation is not something we're going to talk about next?
No, we're not. If you're an accountant in the room, I love you, but I ain't talking about it, okay? But what did he said, I love it and I appreciate you did it because he showed me this big old machine. It's a bending metal. This is the coolest thing ever. You've been in like this thing, and they're building.
Don't stick your arm in there.
No, don't get close to it.
That would make the podcast better, though.
It would be. It would have made highlights film, too. But he said, Doug, I appreciate you letting me buy this. He said, but I want you to point. And he pointed over to 3 people standing there. He said, and I'll use the name Jim, Susie, and Bobby. He said, last year, Jim, Susie, and Bobby didn't have full-time jobs. I could only hire them part-time. He said, now because I could get this piece of equipment, they have full-time jobs. They now have the money and the resources to send their kids to band camp, to send their kids to school, to make sure that they have the things they need. We as conservatives cannot, and I will refuse to give up to liberals that we're the party that's concerned about people because we're the ones that actually believe in them. The liberals believe in government. We believe in people.
You're right. That is so true. And that the people are sovereign.
Yes.
And the people should control their own destiny and succeed or fail on their own terms.
Right.
And this is so important. And you're right. I think sometimes the messaging is not as effective as it could be. The messaging needs to be not only are we fun, like the folks here at CPAC, as you see. But in addition to being fun, our ideas work. And I think of my home state of Iowa, where they just cut taxes by 50%. Right. Income tax is 50% on the way to go to zero.
Yep.
That is money in the pocket. And now with Joe Biden's inflation tax, where gas prices are through the roof, bread, beer, which I care about a lot, and all those expenses, are increasing in Americans' lives. So more money in your pocket. A better life for your family, a future for your kids that they can succeed on their own terms. That's what American people care about, and that's what conservatives care about.
Oh, exactly. Look, understand something, and I want to say, because the liberals will take what we say and they move it off a little bit, and they say, well, government, liberals, will say conservatives hate government. They don't think. No, government has a role. The founders actually set a policy for how our government should be limited and functional. The rest of it should be left to us, and I think this is the part. It says, life, liberty, and what does it say? The pursuit of happiness. It don't say the guarantee of happiness. I don't want a guarantee of happiness because if the government had to guarantee my happiness, they have to guarantee your happiness, And look, I'm going to get out there and work. I want my happiness, but it comes at different levels, and the government can't guarantee that. And when we understand that, that's how we go to any community. Red, yellow, black, and white. Race has got to be an issue. And I'm tired of also, CPAC folks, I'm tired of conservatives saying, well, that's not a district for us. That's not a neighborhood for us. No, conservatism works no matter where it's at. We got to be happy warriors like Reagan and go to everywhere.
Yes. That is so important, the happy warrior, and you're absolutely right. Just because this district's D plus 16, that doesn't mean that once we communicate our ideas and our ideals that we can't win hearts and minds.
Right.
Because the American people are with us. I think for too long, the mainstream media and Democrats have fed them this line that they'll take care of them, and they just don't.
Right.
Their policies are what's hurting America right now. Our policies are what are going to win the day. And so I am so glad, Doug, that you joined us. Again, how can people find out more about you and your podcast?
The best place to go to thedougcollinspodcast.com, thedougcollinspodcast.com. You can sign up for our emails. You sign up for Collins Collective. You get all the podcasts. Go there, and that's where you can find us.
All right. Well, you have so much more in your heart for service. We didn't even talk about your service to our country, not only as a member of Congress, but in the military. And I know you just said you've done amazing things, and you are a young man with a lot more to give. So I can't wait to see what's next for you.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us. We'll be right back here on CPAC Now. This is Liberty and Justice with Matt Whitaker.
Hey everyone, it's Colton here. We're out here at CPAC 2022 in the beautiful Orlando, Florida, and we're currently going around to the attendees doing a trivia game for a chance to win a $15 gift card to the CPAC store. So let's go test the knowledge of our attendees. So we're going to start off pretty easy. Which party freed the slaves during the Civil War?
Republican.
All right, good. Year did America declare independence?
1776.
All right, too easy, too easy. So I'll give you a hint. So the plane is called Air Force One. So what is the helicopter called?
Helicopter One or Heli One?
Disappointed!
What was the first state of the United States?
Delaware.
Okay. All right. What was the first governing document of the United States?
Bill of Rights. Actually, no, it was the Articles of Confederation, but that was before it.
He caught himself, and he got it right. He gets the $15 gift card. Here you go. Yes, sir. He's going to look pretty famous right now walking with me. All right, so the next question is even harder. Where did the Mayflower dock?
Plymouth Rock.
Oh my gosh, he got that one right. All right, here, excuse me, coming through, pardon me, excuse me. Which political party created the welfare system to keep minorities dependent on the government?
Democrats.
Oh my goodness, she's off to a great start.
No, I did. I just had a Biden moment. I
We
thought
all
I
have
shot
those
my
days.
pants for a second.
You had a brain freeze.
Yeah, but I really didn't know it was Marine One because he's never invited me on it.
I know.
Let's all vote again. I just can't wait till we all vote again. With pen and paper, voter ID in our hands. I can't wait till we all vote again. Let's all vote again. Again.
You know, I came here to do trivia, but I got a concert.
Welcome back to CPAC Now. I'm Matt Whitaker, host of Liberty and Justice. You can watch us every Friday night, 7 p.m., premiering once a week. I'm excited to have my good friend Scott Walker, former governor of Wisconsin. We're a little bit competitive because I'm from Iowa and you're from Wisconsin, but you have
good Midwesterners.
Exactly,
Big
we're
Ten.
great Midwesterners. We're it's not Minnesota where the extroverts look at your shoes and introverts look at their own, but we
Well,
get
we used
some
to
of that.
say, you know why Iowa doesn't have a professional football team? Because Minnesota won too.
That's a great one. And then when I was in Minnesota, just at the early part of my legal career, this is a fun story, but we digress. When the Timberwolves were going to leave,
Oh, yeah.
and one of the sports writers said, Minneapolis without professional sports is a cold Omaha. So I knew you were going to like that joke.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, we're here on CPAC now. We're at CPAC. I know that one of the issues that you're working really hard on is on our college campuses. Talk about your efforts there and what you're seeing and how we have hope for the future and the future of our republic, quite frankly.
We do. I'm proud to be the president of Young America's Foundation, YAF.org. If people are interested, we partner with CPAC. In fact, YF was one of the original sponsors with ACU all the way back to the early 70s of YAF, and we hold conferences. We have members. We've helped students, conservative students, on about 2,000 campuses across
and
America.
a great chapter at the University of Iowa.
We do.
My alma mater.
An active one, which they've done a great job on. But what gives me hope is, years ago when it started with William F. Buckley and Reagan and Goldwater, it was on college campuses. In '98, when we took over the Reagan Ranch, we expanded into high school. This year, we're going into middle school, because we've seen the radical indoctrination doesn't just start in college. It's starting younger and younger and younger. That's the bad. That's the impetus. That's the thing we need to act on. The good news is, particularly in college, we see when we bring conservative voices to campus, when we start spreading the truth, it resonates. The reason that young people are liberal, radical, progressive, whatever you want to call them, it's not necessarily because that's what they truly believe. It's because that's all they've ever heard. We got to counter that.
Yeah, and I have my daughter, Allison, is working here at CPAC this week. She's interning for Senator Ernst in Washington, D.C. She's going to be a senior at the University of Iowa next year. And so these are issues that I hear firsthand from her experiences and how, and the University of Iowa had some challenges with discriminating against, freedom-loving religious groups and the like. And so, this is, I know you guys it's a big organization. You're looking for not only for the conservatives, but you're providing programming to win those hearts and minds where people are forming ideas. And talk about some of the initiatives, some of the things that Young America Foundation is doing in the campuses?
Well, we do a number of different things. We bring in speakers. So one of the most famous ones people have heard of, he started out relatively unknown years ago, but now kids all over the country know Ben Shapiro.
Yes.
But he's one of the many speakers. Ben Shapiro, Michael Nolt, Katie Pavlich is an alum. Peter Schweitzer, we're going to hear from Lunch, is an alum who's wrote Clinton Cash and now just put out Red Handed. There's just so many great examples. We bring speakers on campus, but more than just bringing them to that particular campus, as we did at the University of Iowa, it's then putting it up on YouTube. And what's been so encouraging for me is to see the numbers escalate of YouTube subscribers and people click in. I'm convinced it's not because of pre-programmed stuff that we put on. It's because we put the speakers and particularly the Q&A up. They want to see, how do you respond to that crazy student? How do you respond to that radical teaching assistant? How do you push back? The other thing we do on campus is expose. We have a tip line, yaf.org/tips at neighboring Iowa State. One of the professors we exposed last semester was an English teacher who told the students coming into class, you can't write a paper speaking out against same-sex marriage. You can't do one against BLM. You can't do one against abortion, or you're out. We exposed that, and thankfully in Iowa, there's at least enough common sense amongst the Board of Regents. They said, no, that's not free speech.
Exactly. We have a very smart legislature and a governor that's keen on these issues. But this is, there's so many directions that you and I could talk about. I mean, you were one of the early attention of the mob, where, when you did your reforms that were good for the taxpayers and good for the citizens of Wisconsin, you had the people who were, being impacted negatively and should be, because this was something that needed to be reconciled. Collective bargaining reform, I think, was the topic.
Yes.
You were recalled. I mean, you ran for governor one, recalled one, and then won re-election.
3 times in 4 years.
Them. Yeah, 3 times in 4 years. You were trial tested, and so the mob has come against you. But certainly cancel culture, and like you said, the content that YAF is putting up, and to train and educate on the important topics. How do you make sure that it is evergreen and stays out there? Because, YouTube is owned by Google, and they're not always the friend of conservatives.
Well, we got to fight in every battlefield. You understand that? You got to fight every place. We concede no ground. We're at every campus we can get on, and we're going to push for others. We're going to be on every platform we can get on, not only those that we work with on the conservative side, but anyone we can get on before we get bumped off. Somebody I talked about us being on YouTube last year, we rolled out our long game, which is our multi-year plan to help take back our schools, take back our colleges, take back our universities, take back our culture. And one of the talk show hosts I was on, he said, why are you on YouTube? I said, they're awful. I said, because I'm ceding any ground anywhere. I'm going to fight everywhere I can. And we've got to do that. And that's, again, part of our long game plan to do just that.
Again, how can people learn more about your organization?
YAF.org, YAF.org. If you're a student or you know one, maybe it's your son or daughter, maybe it's grandson, granddaughter, neighbor, kid, come to our conferences. They can come out to the Reagan Ranch, which is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. We just had a Freedom Conference in Atlanta. We've got a national conference in D.C. We've got them all over the country, and we'd love to have more students participate.
All right. Governor Scott Walker, thank you for being my guest on Liberty and Justice. You're watching us on conservative.org and CPAC Now every Friday, 7 p.m. God bless the United States of America, and thank you so much, Governor.
My pleasure.